Beneath the quiet shimmer of Kara Ealun's twin moons, the crystalline planet glowed like a dream half-remembered, a jewel hanging in the darkness of space. Fleet Commander Jonah Reese stood on the wide glass steps of the Valari Citadel, watching the alien sun dip behind violet mountains. It had been years since Jonah last wore a uniform, his medals now tucked away in boxes no one cared about, and his name slowly slipping from the lips of admirals and historians alike. Now he was simply a diplomat and old warhorse sent to smile, shake hands, and help keep the peace. The Valari Dominion, a race of tall, graceful beings with silvered skin and eyes like swirling nebulae, had long been a mystery to humanity. They had remained silent observers during the Great Expansion, watching as human ships spread through the stars like fire across dry brush. Only recently had they opened communication, and only with Jonah, whom they had requested by name. That alone was strange, but what happened next was stranger still. The air shimmered as the Dominion's arrival song began, low and melodic, echoing through the crystalline halls. Jonah watched as the ceremonial gates opened, revealing the Valari delegation regal in their flowing garments of woven starlight. At their head walked a tall figure in military armor adorned with sharp lines and glowing filigree, her stride confident, powerful, but graceful like a dancer's. She removed her helmet, revealing a face both fierce and striking, and her eyes. Locked with Jonah's, time seemed to slow. She approached, and without a word leaned in close, her voice soft and cold against his ear. "My father always spoke of you," she whispered, her tone holding both accusation and awe. Jonah blinked, heart thudding. He had never met the Valari Emperor, hadn't even known they had one until last year. He stepped back slightly, trying to read her face, but her expression was unreadable. The music faded. The crowd held its breath, unsure if this was part of the ceremony or something else entirely. The Princess General straightened, eyes scanning. The humans behind Jonah before she gave a nod, and the procession continued as if nothing had happened. Jonah stood rooted in place, a single thought racing through his mind. What did she mean? Back in his private quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Saul's Whisper, Jonah activated a secure channel and replayed everything he remembered about past Valari contact. There was nothing personal, no direct meeting, no moment he could recall. That would link him to the royal family. But the whisper, her tone, wasn't casual. It carried meaning. He searched through encrypted logs, old battle reports from his earlier days during the Solara Rift conflict, wondering if a forgotten skirmish held the answer. That night he couldn't sleep. A knock came at his door. It wasn't protocol, and the ship's AI hadn't announced a visitor. Cautious, he opened it. The Princess General stood there, alone, helmet tucked under one arm. "We need to speak," she said. He nodded slowly and stepped aside. Inside, she wasted no time. She placed a glowing crystal on the table, and a projection shimmered to life Anne. Old recording, flickering and broken. In it, a much younger Valari male with eyes like hers addressed the camera. "If this message finds you, human, then I am dead. My daughter carries the burden now. You may not remember me, but I remember. You spared us when others would not. You gave us time." The image blinked and faded. Jonah sat down, stunned. "When was this recorded?" he asked. "Over 30 years ago," she replied. He said you saved our outpost, an act you never reported. I was a child then. Jonah tried to recall the event. One mission came to mind, an unexplained distress signal on the edge of a red dwarf system, where his fleet arrived only to find abandoned rooms and a single functioning escape pod. He had ordered the area cleared. The pod brought aboard, and the survivors aliens, unknown at the time, released without report under classified humanitarian protocols. No names, no records. He had assumed it was a rogue colony or pirates. "You're telling me that was you?" he asked. "It was my father's exile outpost," Kalira said. "We lived hidden. When the coup failed, we fled. But the secessionists found us. They would have destroyed us. Your ship was our only hope." Jonah leaned back, the weight of forgotten history pressing on him. "Why tell me now?" he asked. Kalira looked out the window toward the planet below. "Because the past is returning. There are those within the Dominion who want to end the alliance, to erase the debt. They say humanity will bring chaos. But my father believed otherwise. He called you the proof that mercy could survive among stars." Jonah felt the old stirrings of duty rising again, the kind that had driven him before politics dulled the blade. "What do you need from me?" he asked. She turned, and for the first time her voice wavered slightly. "There's something my father left behind, a piece of ancient technology older than either of our peoples. He believed you were the key to unlocking it. I retrieved it, but I cannot understand it. I think it's human, or at least it responds to human neural patterns." She placed the device in his hand, a shard of translucent metal that pulsed faintly. As he touched it, it flickered, showing strange symbols that hovered in the air, like language formed from light. Jonah stared, mind racing. Whatever this was, it wasn't Velari, and it wasn't human either. It was something else. Something old, and it had just reacted to him. Kalira's eyes met his. "If they find out I've given this to you, I'll be called a traitor," she said. "But if we do nothing, there will be war." Jonah closed his hand around the shard. "Then we don't let them find out," he said quietly. "We find out what this thing is and why it's reacting to me." Outside, Kara-Loon sparkled in the dark like a siren song of mystery and danger. Deep within, old secrets were stirring, and in the cold silence of space, something unseen began to shift, awakened by a name spoken in an old language, Jonah. "Reese." The shard pulsed in Jonah's palm like a slow heartbeat, its symbols shifting with every breath he took, glowing softly in the dim light of his quarters aboard Saul's Whisper. Kalira stood nearby, silent but watching him closely, her usually steady eyes flickering with something unreadable doubt, fear, maybe both. The strange metal shard seemed alive, not in the way machines lived, but as if it remembered, as if it waited. Jonah had seen alien tech before, even touched artifacts from extinct worlds, but this felt different. It responded to him. "This is only part of the whole," Kalira said, her voice low. "The rest is hidden in what we call the Nebula Scrolls. They are not scrolls, really, but encoded layers within a precursor vault deep in the Velari archives. My father was obsessed with them. He said they contained knowledge from before the stars were born." Jonah looked up, confused. "Why didn't anyone try to decode them?" Kalira hesitated. "They are protected by law, forbidden to study." My father believed that law was meant to keep us from awakening something too large to control. But he believed humanity was different, that your people could see beyond fear and use the knowledge with wisdom. Jonah let that sit with him, feeling both the weight of trust and the sharp edge of risk. She continued, I smuggled out part of the data, the vault's outer encryption, but without the shard it was useless. With it, she trailed off as Jonah set the shard near his datapad. Immediately the two connected, not through wires, but through light. A map appeared in the air, not of a place, but of ideas, symbols, coordinates, fragments of language that floated and twisted into place like puzzle pieces caught in a storm. Jonah stared at the patterns, his mind swimming with half-familiar shapes. It's showing a location, he said slowly, a star system near the edge of Vilari space, and something else. Kalira moved closer. The Nebula Vault, she whispered, but no one's accessed it in centuries. The Dominion believes it's cursed, guarded by sentient defense systems too dangerous to approach. Jonah frowned, still watching the moving map. Then why show it to me? She met his eyes. Because the map is shaped by thought. That's precursor tech. Only a handful of species ever triggered a response. My father said if it showed you a path, you were meant to walk it. Before Jonah could reply, the ship's AI chimed. Commander Reese encrypted message from United Terran Archives. High priority. Jonah opened it, and the holographic image of director Alana Weiss blinked into view. Her face was pale, serious. Jonah, the artifact we spoke of, the one buried beneath the Oslo vault? It's gone, stolen, no signs of forced entry. Only one clue, a matching energy pulse to the shard you're studying. Jonah exchanged a glance with Kalira, whose lips pressed into a thin line. Weiss continued, there's more. That pulse activated dormant files across our entire archive grid. One of them is labeled with your service ID, dating back 32 years. A file you never created. The message ended, leaving only silence. Kalira turned to the shard, now dim but still warm. Someone else is using precursor tech, she said, and they want to keep us from finding the vault. Jonah stood up. We need to reach that system before they do. The journey took 2 days in slipstream. During that time, Jonah reviewed the mysterious file tied to his old ID. It was a video log, a fragment showing a younger him during the Solar Rift mission. The file showed something he had forgotten, or perhaps been made to forget. His fleet discovering a derelict ship drifting near a broken worm gate, and inside it a chamber filled with strange writing and a floating shard nearly identical to the one Kalira now carried. He had reached out to touch it in the video, and then the recording ended. The memory came flooding back now, buried under layers of classified orders and neural dampeners. Someone had erased it from official records, and from his own mind. He had been there once before, and now he was returning. As Saul's whisper dropped out of slipstream, the vault world came into view, a lonely gray planet suspended inside a twisting violet nebula, with lightning crawling across its atmosphere like restless snakes. Kalira's ship, smaller and faster, disengaged its stealth drive and moved ahead, scanning for threats. The vault's surface structure looked like a temple turned inside out, massive pillars rising into the sky, surrounded by broken rings of metal, as if once part of a larger machine. They landed on a flat stone platform marked with runes that pulsed weakly as Jonah approached. The shard in his hand buzzed louder, growing hotter. "It's reacting," Kalira said. Jonah stepped forward, placing the shard against a central pedestal. Light surged from the ground, forming a dome around them, and suddenly they were no longer on the surface. They stood inside the vault, a chamber that defied logic, walls stretching into infinity, stars hanging in the air like ornaments, data, streams winding through the air like music given shape. A voice echoed around them, not in sound, but thought. "Bearer of memory, he who turned from destruction, you have returned." Jonah stiffened. "What is this place?" "A seed of knowledge, buried until the mind that touched mercy would awaken it." Kalira turned slowly. "It's speaking to you. Your kind stands on the edge of a great turning. Others awaken. Paths divide. What you choose here will echo across light years." Suddenly an alert flared in Kalira's comms. Unidentified ship approaching. Not Velari, not human. The voice returned. "One seeks to corrupt. One seeks to unite. Choose." Jonah clenched his fists. "What does that mean?" But there was no answer, only silence, and then a burst of data from the vault that downloaded directly into Jonah's neural implant. Coordinates, star patterns, ancient protocols. The vault was giving him something, tools, or maybe warnings. The light dimmed, the illusion shattered. They were back on the surface. A shadow moved above them and approaching. Ship, black and without markings. Jonah didn't wait. "We need to leave, now." As they launched, the pursuing vessel activated a strange energy weapon, firing toward the vault. But before impact, a shield of pure starlight rose from the ruins, deflecting the attack with ease. The vault had protected itself. In the silence of space, Kalira turned to Jonah. "We are not alone in this. Someone else is watching. Someone who knows what the vaults really are." Jonah nodded, the download still burning in his mind. "And now they know I've been chosen by it." Kalira said nothing, but the fear in her eyes told him everything. This was no longer a diplomatic mission. This was the beginning of something far larger, something that had waited in the dark for too long. And the moment he touched that shard, it had begun. The journey back to Earth was tense and silent, with Jonah Reese staring at the stars through the wide bridge window of Saul's whisper, his thoughts heavier than the dark space outside, the shard lying dormant in his jacket pocket. Like a sleeping ember, Kalira, the Velari Princess General, sat quietly beside him, her posture stiff, her sharp eyes flicking often to the tracking console, where the ghost signal of the black, unmarked ship still hovered at the edge of long-range sensors, following them from a distance too far to engage, yet too close to ignore. Since the vault encounter, Jonah had felt different, not just in mind, but in body. His neural implant burned now and then, reacting to quiet pulses from the shard and the encrypted data downloaded into his brain, data he still hadn't dared to fully unlock. For each time he tried, images he couldn't explain flashed behind his eyes. Alien cities, burning stars, strange beings made of metal and light, and a shape, always a shape like a black triangle, turning endlessly inside. A ring of fire. Earth's defense grid activated automatically as they neared the Sol system, but the black ship vanished before the satellites could scan it. slipping into some unknown cloak of silence, like a whisper swallowed by the void, and Jonah knew this. Meant whoever was behind it had advanced tech, possibly precursor, or worse, a corrupted form of it. Once they docked in the orbital city station of Alexandria Prime, high above Earth, Jonah was pulled into a classified meeting with Terran High Command, where skeptical admirals and tight-lipped scientists examined his report with cold eyes, doubting his every word until Kalira presented her evidence: the shard's reaction, the vault's transmission, and the encrypted star maps burned into Jonah's mind. One voice rose above the doubt: Director Weiss, who had first warned Jonah about the missing Oslo Vault artifact. She listened carefully, her gaze calm but calculating, and finally said, "You brought something back, Commander. But it's not just knowledge, is it?" Jonah hesitated before answering. "No, I think it's a signal, a key, maybe. Something old and alive is watching us." That night, Jonah couldn't sleep. Earth looked peaceful through the glass of his room, its blue surface calm and soft under the stars, but something felt wrong, like a storm building behind a quiet sky. The shard pulsed once in his coat, waking him, and the lights flickered. An alert sounded. There was a breach in the station's lower sector. Someone had broken into the I-core where Earth's defense grid was controlled. Jonah grabbed his sidearm and ran, Kalira already ahead, armor glowing dimly as she moved like a shadow. They reached the core to find 2 guards down, stunned but alive, and a hole cut clean through a 6-inch titanium wall. Inside, the shard in Jonah's pocket burned like fire, and he saw the black triangle shape again in his mind, spinning faster now, louder, as if something nearby called to it. Suddenly the shard leapt from his coat on its own and floated toward the glowing center of the core, merging with the AI matrix. The screens flashed, symbols danced, alarms shut off, and then a single message appeared in ancient precursor script that Jonah could somehow read. "He has been marked. The gate will open. Prepare." The shard dropped to the floor, cold again, and the AI rebooted. No trace of the intruder remained. Weiss arrived moments later, breathless, demanding answers, and Jonah told her everything. The message, the flash, the vision, and for the first time she didn't question him. "This is spreading," she whispered. "There are reports now, shards activating on other worlds, strange dreams among old soldiers, even children drawing symbols they've never seen." Kalira stepped forward. "It's the network," she said. "The Velari once spoke of it in myths. A precursor system buried across the stars, connecting minds, places, even time. It was sleeping. Now it wakes." Weiss looked between them, then said, "If that's true, Earth is in danger. Someone or something is trying to open something, and if the wrong people get there first." She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she handed Jonah a sealed file. Inside were scans of a rogue moon recently detected near Neptune. It had changed position slightly against all known physics, and its energy signature matched the vault. Jonah stared at the image of the moon, dark and pockmarked, like a scarred skull. "That's not a moon," he muttered. "It's a gate." Kalira nodded slowly. "And it's waking." Hours later, Jonah stood with Kalira aboard a stealth cruiser bound for the moon, watching the stars blur into trails. "Do you believe your father planned all this?" he asked quietly. Kalira didn't answer for a long time, then said, "He didn't plan it. He prepared for it. He believed it was coming no matter what. I just never thought it would start with you. Jonah gave a dry smile. Neither did I. But deep down, he knew this wasn't just about him. It was about a choice made long ago, a forgotten kindness in a forgotten war, and whatever lived in those vaults had remembered. As they neared Neptune's orbit, the sensors picked up strange waves, echoes of thoughts, fragments of old language, even flickers of human words. The rogue moon loomed ahead, impossibly large now, its surface etched with glowing patterns that matched the shard's pulse. A single structure sat on its dark side, like a tower turned sideways, metal, ancient, humming with buried power. And then, without warning, the black ship returned, rising from behind the moon like a shadow long, denied light. It had been waiting. It had followed them. And now the real war was about to begin. The stealth cruiser slipped into orbit around Europa, its hull dark against Jupiter's pale glow, and inside the command deck, Jonah Reese watched the drifting. Moon below with a tight jaw and a sinking feeling in his chest as the strange precursor structure, buried beneath Europa's icy crust, slowly came into view, a jagged ring of black stone pulsing faintly with light from within, like a heartbeat felt through the bones of a dead god. And as the cruiser descended, Kalira stood beside him, silent, her face unreadable, but Jonah could sense the tension in her posture, as if she too felt that something was off, that they were walking into more than just a vault, more than a gate. It felt like a test, and maybe a trap. Earth Command had sent no backup this time. Only a ghost signal communications jammed the moment they entered the moon's orbit, as though the very space around the gate was alive, distorting sound and warping time. And the moment their boots touched the ice, the shard in Jonah's chest holster flared to life, hot and bright, responding to something hidden beneath their feet. They entered the vault carefully, weapons ready, lights cutting through thick mist that should not have existed in the vacuum, the ancient doors opening not by force but recognition, as if the structure remembered Jonah, or perhaps the code inside him. And with every step deeper, the walls shimmered with moving symbols, showing memories that weren't his battles in forgotten systems, beings that once ruled the stars, and the fall of a great empire torn apart by something only called the breaker of chains. They reached the central chamber, an arena of sorts, circular and massive, with a tall plinth in the center, surrounded by dormant machines shaped like thrones, each one bearing a symbol of a different ancient race, including the Vailari, the humans, and two Jonah didn't recognize, one of them matching the symbol the black ship had displayed before vanishing near Neptune. Kalira moved ahead, her voice soft. This is not a vault. This is a council hall, a meeting place built by the precursors for the ones who would carry their legacy. Jonah nodded slowly. Then why does it feel like it's waiting for war? Before Kalira could answer, a low hum echoed through the vault, and Jonah's HUD flashed a warning life signs, approaching fast from the north corridor. He raised his weapon, Kalira doing the same, but when the figures stepped from the mist, Jonah's breath caught in his throat. It was a Terran strike team, led by Commander Bren Ashford, a man Jonah had trained with years ago, thought dead, during the Solara Rift mission. Bren smiled, but it was cold. Jonah, fancy seeing you here, still chasing ghosts? Kalira stepped forward, but Bryn raised a hand. "Easy, princess. We're all friends, sort of." Jonah kept his gun up. "How did you get here? Earth Command never approved this mission." Bryn laughed. "Earth Command? You think they still call the shots? You never understood, Jonah. You always followed the rules. But the real power isn't in governments. It's in what's buried under our feet." He held up a shard identical to Jonah's, but cracked as if used for something violent. Kalira's voice dropped. "That's precursor tech. Where did you get it?" Bryn's eyes darkened. "Same place as you, Oslo. But unlike you, I didn't waste time playing the good soldier. I listened to the voices." Jonah stiffened. "What voices?" Bryn stepped closer. "The gate speaks. It has always spoken, and it told me the truth. Earth won't survive what's coming, but with the power of the network, we can control the outcome. We can choose who survives, who rules." Jonah's blood turned cold. "You betrayed us." Bryn shrugged. "I chose a side, one with a future." Then, without warning, he activated the cracked shard. The vault screamed, lights pulsed, machines woke, and Kalira was thrown back by a surge of force as a dark column of energy rose from the plinth, wrapping around the thrones like a cocoon of black fire. Jonah fired, but Bryn vanished in a blink, teleporting deeper into the gate complex using tech that should not have existed. And as Kalira rose to her feet, bleeding from her temple, she gasped, "He's activating the gateway. If he opens it corrupted, it won't just link worlds, it'll consume them." Jonah pulled her up, heart pounding, knowing now that Bryn had never died during the Solara Rift mission, that he had found the first vault alone, hidden the truth and waited for the others to unlock the full key, and Jonah had just led him to the final piece. Alarms flared through the vault now, in frequencies not meant for human ears, and the great thrones around the plinth began to rise, forming a ring in the air, rotating slowly as the fabric of space inside it began to shimmer, like water touched by wind. Kalira pulled out her personal override spike. "I can delay the gate's core, but I'll need you to find him before he completes the circuit." Jonah nodded, sprinting into the twisting halls of the vault, following Bryn's residual energy trail deeper, his gun drawn, the walls now shifting like a dream as the gate's power distorted reality, making the corridors feel endless and haunted. He found Bryn at the core, a circular chamber with a massive sphere suspended in air, surrounded by cables that pulsed with raw data. Bryn was interfacing with it, his hands glowing as the shard bled energy into the machine, his eyes black and hollow. "It's beautiful," Bryn whispered. "You don't understand, Jonah. This isn't betrayal. This is evolution. The precursors didn't die, they became this. And now I will too." Jonah aimed his pistol. "Not if I stop you." But Bryn smiled. "You won't shoot me. You still believe in rules." He activated the shard again, sending a shock wave that knocked Jonah back and cracked his visor. Sparks flew. Blood trickled down Jonah's brow. But then the shard in Jonah's pocket pulsed again, and a memory came rushing back his time in the Solara Rift, when he had first touched the vault and seen a vision not of destruction, but of mercy. He remembered reaching out to a dying enemy, choosing compassion over conquest, and the gate had watched. That was the moment he had been marked. That was why he had been chosen. Standing, he threw his shard toward the core. It collided with Bryn's, the light exploding in a shock of gold and black, and the vault screamed again, this time in pain. Bryn shouted, clutching his head, as the black faded from his eyes. Jonah ran forward and tackled him from the platform, both men crashing into the cold floor. Kalira arrived moments later, locking the controls and sealing the gate sequence. Just as the ring began to fade, the energy died down. The thrones went dark. Bryn lay unconscious. The cracked shard now turned to dust. Jonah stood, breathing hard. "We stop it for now," Kalira said. "But others will come?" Jonah nodded grimly. "Then we make sure the gate stays closed, until we're ready to open it the right way." But deep below Europa, in a vault no one had touched, something else stirred, watching, waiting, and whispering its name across the stars. The true enemy had not shown its face yet, but it had heard the gate scream, and it was coming. The silence after Europa felt like a lie, a fragile pause before something terrible broke through, and Jonah Rees knew deep down that the war hadn't been stopped, only delayed, as he stood on the observation deck of the Terran Council's hidden base orbiting Saturn, watching its swirling storms while Kalira and Director Weiss argued quietly behind him, their voices tense, strained by fear and urgency, because strange signals had begun to arrive, not from vaults or enemy ships, but from deep space outside the mapped galaxy, whispers and frequencies no species had used in millennia, and all saying one word: they are coming. The vault gate on Europa had gone dark, but the energy signature it gave off before dying had sent out a pulse, a call, a signal that had echoed far beyond Sol, and now the Watchers were responding, not as enemies, not yet, but as something worse, observers from the dark edge of time, being spoken of in old precursor data as the ones who judged civilizations, who watched them rise, fall, and sometimes vanish, and now their black ships were appearing, one by one, silent and still in deep space around Earth's colonies, never attacking, just floating like cold eyes in the dark, causing fear without a single shot fired. On Mars, crops began to fail without reason. On Titan, entire communication networks flickered in and out, always showing glimpses of strange symbols before returning to normal. On Earth, children across 5 continents started drawing the same shapes: the gate, the shard, and the triangle, burning in a ring. Kalira said the Velari had once feared the Watchers above all, that their presence meant a judgment was near, and that only a few civilizations had ever survived such contact without being erased, not with weapons, but with silence, with history itself being stripped away like a dream forgotten at dawn. Jonah couldn't sleep, his dreams full of strange visions, and each time he touched the shard, though cold and quiet now, it pulsed with one clear feeling: prepare. Bryn remained in containment, awake but silent, eyes hollow as if part of him had been left behind in the gate, and the scientist feared the broken shard embedded in his spine might still be transmitting something, though they couldn't explain what. The Terran Council grew restless, demanding action, but Jonah warned them that to attack the Watchers could be suicide, that they were not here to fight, but to witness, and what they witnessed determined who would be allowed to continue. Then the first real change happened. Above Europa, a Black Watcher ship descended slowly and landed without warning near the dead gate. No sound, no message, only its presence, and Jonah was sent with Kalira and a small team to observe. But as they approached the site, they saw something impossible. The gate was active again, glowing softly, and at its center floated a figure not human, not Velari, not anything they could name, tall and faceless, its skin like shifting stone and stars, its voice entering their minds without words, just feelings, sorrow, warning, and a question. Why do you open what you do not understand? Jonah stepped forward, and to his shock, the being turned toward him, the shard in his chest flaring to life, connecting again to something vast and ancient, and suddenly he could see glimpses of the Watcher's world, a place outside time, beyond light, where all futures could be seen, all choices weighed. The Watcher showed him Earth's future in fragments, one path where war consumed it, another where the gates led to ruin, and one where unity could open the network without destruction. But to reach that path, one price had to be paid. Someone must enter the gate and close it from the other side. Jonah staggered back, heart racing, unsure if it was a warning, a test, or a sentence. The Watcher slowly raised a hand, and from its palm emerged a new shard, different from Jonah's, golden and sharp-edged, pulsing with a steady rhythm. This is the key to the last gate, the Watcher's presence said. Take it or fall. Jonah took it, and the Watcher vanished, fading into mist, leaving only the gate and the new shard behind. Back on the cruiser, Kalira studied the shard and confirmed what Jonah feared. It was a master key, able to unlock the central gate hinted at in the nebulous scrolls, the one that bound all others, hidden in the gravity well of a dying star known as Veil's End. Weiss wanted time to prepare, but Jonah knew they had little left. Other Watcher ships were now seen near every major system, always silent, always watching, and Earth's populations were beginning to panic. Riots spread on the colonies. Prophets appeared claiming the end had come. Some even began worshipping the Watchers. And then Bryn escaped. One morning his cell was empty, no sign of forced entry, only a symbol burned into the wall, the same triangle Jonah had seen in his mind. Sensors showed no breach, but the shard in Jonah's possession grew colder, heavier, as if it mourned. Kalira believed Bryn had made contact again, possibly through the broken shard in his body, and worse, he might now be heading for the final gate on his own. The race was on. Jonah, Kalira, and a small joint task force set course for Veil's End, guided by the new shard, while Earth descended into quiet fear, knowing their fate was being decided far beyond their reach. As they neared the dying star, space itself twisted, sensors failing, and the cruiser's engines screamed against invisible pressure. The final gate was there, orbiting the red giant, not built, but grown alive, ancient, and waiting. And beside it a black ship hovered, not Watcher, not Terran, Bryn's, and it had already begun to open the gate. The dying red star pulsed in slow agony, its light flickering across the twisted edges of the final gate as Jonah Reese stood on the deck of the shuttle, staring at the black ship drifting beside it, Bryn's ship, silent and open, like a waiting trap, while the golden shard in Jonah's hand throbbed with a strange warmth that felt like fear and destiny combined, and behind him Kalira worked quickly to stabilize the readings from the failing nav systems, her fingers moving fast across the controls as the proximity to the living gate bent space and time like waves in a storm. They had reached Veil's End, the oldest secret in the galaxy, and the decision now lay on Jonah's shoulders, for the gate was opening slower than before, more uncertain, as if even it feared what waited on the other side, and Bryn was already there, his signal active, his ship drawing power from the gate's veins like a parasite, waking an ancient beast, and though Jonah could not see him yet, he could feel his presence like a shadow inside his chest, cold and cruel, whispering promises that were not words but feelings of power, control, and a future where order came from fear. Jonah and Kalira suited up and docked with the black ship, their boots clanking on its hollow floors, weapons drawn, only to find it empty, lights flickering, walls etched with a triangle symbol, and strange runes neither Terran nor Velari. And then the ship spoke not with a voice, but with a memory projected into their minds, showing Bryn in the gate core, holding the broken shard like a blade, speaking to something that answered not in words, but in whispers so ancient and vast they seemed to come from the bones of the universe itself. And Jonah realized the truth in that moment. Bryn was not just activating the gate. He was trying to merge with it, to become its voice, its master. And in doing so, he was letting something else in, something that had been waiting beyond the gates since before time began, something even the Watchers feared. Rushing to the central platform, Jonah and Kalira entered the final gate chamber, a place not built but formed by thought and memory, with floating pathways and symbols hanging in the air like stars. And at the center stood Bryn, his eyes glowing, his body wrapped in tendrils of dark light, the broken shard pulsing against his spine as the gate formed a spiral behind him, its edges tearing at reality. And as they stepped forward, Bryn smiled not with joy, but with victory. "You came," he said, his voice layered with something else, deeper and older. "Good. You need to see. You need to understand." Jonah raised the golden shard. "This isn't understanding. This is madness." Bryn's laugh echoed like thunder. "No, Jonah. This is truth. The gates were never just doors. They are veins. They carry the memory of the universe. And behind them, the first flame waits. It remembers everything, every lie, every war, every failure, and it is tired of watching." Kalira stepped forward, her eyes locked on the growing spiral of light. "You think you can control it?" Bryn's smile faded. "No, I think I can survive it." Then the gate roared not with sound, but with a whisper that pierced their minds, showing flashes of all timelines, all possibilities. And Jonah saw earth in flames, earth in peace, earth forgotten, earth as a legend told by stars long dead. And in that single moment, he knew what the Watchers had always meant. They didn't come to destroy, but to give a choice, evolve or be forgotten. The whisper spoke again, not to all, but to Jonah alone, soft and calm, a voice that was both his own and not. "You have seen. You understand. Will you carry the fire?" The golden shard burned hot in his hand. Kalira screamed as a wave of energy burst from the spiral, knocking her back, and Bryn laughed again, stepping into the gate's core, his body glowing with unnatural light as the dark tendrils pulled at his form. "This is it," he cried. "I become the gate." Jonah ran forward, shard raised, and in one final motion, he plunged the golden shard into the heart of the spiral, not to open it, but to seal it, to complete the circuit the Watchers had designed, and suddenly everything went still, no sound, no motion, just white light and silence like the pause before the first breath of creation. And in that silence the whisper came again, "Thank you." The light exploded outward, the spiral collapsing in on itself, pulling Bryn with it, who screamed not in pain, but in rage as he vanished into the gate. And then it was gone, sealed. Silent, only the faint echo of the whisper lingering in the air. Jonah fell to his knees, breath gone, the golden shard now cracked and cold, its task complete. Kalira limped to him, helping him stand, her face pale but alive. "Is it over?" she asked, and Jonah looked at the empty space where the gate had been. For now. They returned to the ship, and as they left the orbit of Vale's End, the Watcher's ships began to vanish, one by one like sentinels returning to sleep, their judgment past. Earth began to heal, the colonies calmed, the strange symbols faded, and for the first time in generations the stars felt quiet. But Jonah knew the whisper would never truly fade, that the fire had been passed to him, not as a weapon, but a promise to guide, not rule, to protect, not conquer. And as he looked out into the dark between the stars, he heard it again, faint and far. When the stars forget, remind them who they are. And so he did.